I'm here to tell you that your whole life can change in a moment. And this is that moment. And this is the word.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Word, the Unofficial PREACHER Podcast. We have a special episode for you today. There will be no coverage of any Preacher episode. We have something even better for you. We were lucky enough to chat with Julie Ann Emery, who's returned for her third visit to The Word. And it was a great time. We actually took a different approach this time and decided to not really do so much of an interview. It was more of a conversation, and I think that it really turned out well. We really enjoyed talking to her. She's always a fantastic guest, and she's just so goddamn awesome. I hope that you love this. You're going to learn some things about her, okay? Maybe things that you didn't know. For example, how is she linked to K.D. Lang? What's her link to the Black Eyed Peas? If you walked up on her in the wrong way, could she kick your ass? That gets answered too. What's the one role she hasn't tackled yet? Is she a Star Wars fan? Is she a Star Trek fan? Is she both? All of these things and more are going to be answered on this episode. I'm not going to string you along. I want you guys to find these things out. So we're going to go ahead and start this right now. Ladies and gentlemen of the congregation, it gives me nothing but great pleasure to give you our chat with the incomparable, the wonderful Julie Ann Emery. Check it out. So normally when you come on, it's just me talking to you. Of course, we had Malcolm on last time, but
yes,
I do have a co-host, and his name's Steve, and he's here with us today.
Excellent. Hey, Steve, how you doing, man?
What's going on? Been waiting a long time to talk to you. I've been missing every single time you've gotten interviewed. I'm like, next time, I'm going to be there.
Awesome. I am so here for it.
So are you doing the driving?
No, I am not driving. My husband's driving.
Oh, Mr. Kevin Early.
Oh, the Broadway
Mr.
star.
They say hello. Yes, Mr. Early is driving.
We're just rubbing elbows, Steve. It's
I know,
awesome.
I'm telling you. When I go to New York, I'm like, everybody just calm down. I got a friend on stage. I'm going to be...
I know a dude. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, where are you headed?
We're headed down to Laguna Beach for tonight. There's a charity event involving Pageant of the Masters. Do you know what Pageant of the Masters is?
I do not.
Yeah, where they bring paintings to life.
Oh, come on.
And Melissa Manchester's going to sing, and yeah.
Nice.
It sounded fun. We've always wanted to go, and they invited me this year, so I was like, sure, absolutely, let's do it. I like helping for a good cause, you know what I mean?
Are you going to be singing? We know that you sing now.
I do sing, but I will not be singing tonight. I will be enjoying Melissa Manchester, although Kevin has sung at a charity event with Melissa Manchester before.
Like a duet?
No, like on the same bill, but he loves her. He thinks she's lovely.
Oh,
she is lovely.
Yeah.
She is I haven't seen her for years.
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
Dan, what was a Melissa Manchester hit off the top of your dome?
Oh.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing. There's some women in that time period you get mixed up, right? So there's Melissa Manchester. There's Mary Chapin Carpenter. There's like K.D. Lang maybe mixed in there. Like you think you know who K.D. Lang is, you know what she looks like, but then like when it gets to the music,
K.D. Lang really stands out.
You know a song.
Yeah.
Do I know a song? What
Yes,
song?
you do. Well, you probably know more than, how about Don't Cry Out Loud?
That's Melissa Manchester?
Just
Yes.
keep it inside, Steve. Just keep it inside.
That's right. That's right.
Remember, okay, this is a deep cut, but speaking of K.D. Lang, do you remember on the Dick Tracy soundtrack, she had a song with Take Six, Riding the Rails?
Yes.
Oh, that song was so good.
Yes. I love K.D. Lang. Okay, so I have a story about K.D. Lang.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah,
Yes.
do it to it.
So I love K.D. Lang, and my family are big K.D. Lang fans, even though I'm from the South. And first time my mother visited me in Studio City in the Valley, we were at the Studio City Farmers Market, which is a small farmers market. It's not gigantic. And we're at like the organic food stand, and someone goes, "Excuse me." And I felt every muscle in my mom's body tense. And I look over, and it's K.D. Lang.
Oh, wow.
And K.D. Lang looks at her, and she's like, you know, do the leeks look good? And my mom is freaking out so badly, and she cannot speak. And so I start talking to K.D. Lang about produce, and then she leaves, and my mom goes, "Julie, that was K.D. Lang." And I was like, "Yes, I know, Mom. Be cool. You're good. You're good. Just be cool. You're good."
Oh my gosh.
You're blowing it, Mom.
You're blowing it, Mom. You're blowing it. Just be cool. She's sitting here talking to you. She obviously wants to talk to you.
My
I know.
goodness.
K.D. Lang wanted to talk to my mom about produce, and she freaked. I know.
What are the chances, though, of running into K.D. Lang
Right. Of all the people to run into randomly at the Studio City Farmers Market, my mom winds up next to Katie Lang. And she's in from, it's not like she lives here. It's not like she's there every week. She runs into Katie Lang. Pretty cool, right?
But you know what? You never know if Katie Lang probably recognized you.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, snap.
Here's the question. Is Katie Lang a Preacher fan? That's the question.
Or a Hitch fan? Or a Christmas on the Coast fan?
Fargo.
Better Call Saul.
We're telling her what she's been in.
But here's the thing, like when Betty Buckley, my husband's a musical theater guy. I started in musical theater. Like Betty Buckley was the ideal.
Oh, yeah.
When Betty Buckley came on Preacher, she was already a Preacher fan.
Oh, come on.
She'd been watching. She started quoting Featherstone to me.
What?
Like she was a massive Preacher fan before she ever got cast on the show. So you never
She
know.
walked up,
You
she's
don't
like,
know.
how do I
Katie
get
Lang could be
her
watching
to
Preacher,
recognize me? Let me just ask her about POTUS. And you're sitting there thinking she's fangirling. See, you got to realize she's not Katie Lang. You're Julie Ann Emery.
That's better.
I will never believe that could possibly be true. But you go ahead and walk down that story in your head.
It's the truth.
What kind of music do you listen to besides Melissa Manchester? What are you into?
I have a pretty schizophrenic taste in music. I'm listening to a lot of Casey Musgraves right now, actually. Do you know who Casey Musgraves is?
I've heard her. Her name.
I was going to say, maybe you heard her on Saturday Night Live. She's a country singer, but she sings about smoking weed and being a lesbian or I feel like she's speaking to social messages in a way that my people can understand,
Nice.
Like I think I dig it. I really like her a lot. And I think she is sort of like a new version of Katie Lang and Mary Chapin Carpenter. And I feel like her songs kind of lean that way.
Well, now is she a younger artist, brand new,
Yes,
okay?
Yeah, definitely.
I shouldn't assume this. I'm assuming she's from the South.
She is. Yeah, I think she's from Texas. But yes, but I don't only listen to that. I mean, I have a cousin who played bass for the Black Eyed Peas. I listen to all their stuff.
Really?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
On tour or just in the studio?
Early on tour. And now when he had kids, he came off the road. So now he plays on their albums and he scores stuff. Like he and two of his other former Peas bandmates score like Blackish and movies and Madam Check. They've always got 2 or 3 shows on the air. Mixed Dish is one of their shows that they'll have coming up. Yeah.
There's a lot of issues. Yeah, I peeped that. I was like, oh, there's new Mixed Dish. There was almost something. I was like, oh, they're milking this wonderful awesomeness. Because I wasn't even in. My mom was like, hey, you've got to see Blackish. I'm like, I don't know. And then I watched it. I was like, oh, I'm tripping.
And it's so good that I'm watching Grownish. Like,
are you really?
Hulu. Like, and I'm so not their audience, but I'm into it. I like the conversation they're having.
I love it. I love it. I think one of the episodes, I remember I was in such a bad mood. Then I rewatched. I was like, fine. But one episode, they're like, when Trump first got elected, they were like, all we have to do is come together and be friends. And I'm just like, ugh. But then I watched other episodes. I was like, okay.
But they are talking about some real stuff. So
exactly.
But if we go, and I also listen to some classical music. I'm a big jazz fan. Like my musical taste kind of runs the gamut. I listen to a lot of Christina Aguilera at the gym. Like it just depends on, and then I tend to pick either an album or a song for my characters. So my musical taste starts to like vary wildly. So, I have a pretty wide musical taste.
What would you say the Featherstone song was?
Well, Onward Christian Soldiers is obviously so incredibly perfect for her. And that melody, but before Onward Christian Soldiers was written into a script, I was listening to all of this sort of like Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Oh, wow.
Religious. Yeah. I use it in the mornings when I'm getting dressed, like if I'm on set in my trailer, just to sort of like click into character. But I was listening to a lot of sort of, this is going to sound weird, like go to war Christian music. I don't know. Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Look
that
at
sounds
this.
weird, but yeah, it sounds very Featherstone. So yeah.
It's very Featherstone-y. It's very, because that's her. She is all in.
Let's talk, let's talk about Featherstone for just a second.
She
because
is so good.
Honestly, like, I'm just glad we have Julie Ann on the phone right now, man. But I have to ask you, because you're so freaking nice. What's the mindset? You know what I mean? Like when you're getting ready to click into Laura Featherstone, what's your mindset?
So there are a couple of my favorite things about Featherstone that I hope just bleed into my life a little bit. And one of them is that are we allowed to curse?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, she could give two fucks what you think about her.
Yes.
Yeah.
She does not give a shit what you think about her. We were in a fight rehearsal one day, and Ruth looked at me, and we'd been like sort of adding some of the dialogue to it so we could figure out the moments with the physical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me and she was like, "You're such a bitch." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Featherstone doesn't care that she's a bitch." And I was like, "No, she cares if she accomplishes her goal or achieves her mission. But she doesn't care what you think of her. She doesn't care who she has to be in order to make it happen." And I think it's healthy to care a little bit less what people think of you all day if you're living a righteous life. Now, we can talk about if we think Featherstone's living a righteous life, but she believes she's living a righteous life.
That is awesome.
So I like that about her. And this season, we get a little bit of arrogant Featherstone.
Yes.
And like last season, we got rage in Featherstone, and I never thought we'd see something like rage on her. And then she always starts making mistakes when she's enraged, which makes it worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this season, we get arrogant Featherstone. We kind of get Featherstone feeling that she is in her element and confident. It's the season, in the early parts of the season, we get the best Featherstone living her best life.
It's funny because I was telling Dan the other day, I said, no spoilers for people who haven't seen this episode, but there was a quote unquote hysterical comment that someone made to you on the show saying, "Okay, if you're done being hysterical." I'm like, you know what? I think Featherstone is she's going to loke up, and that is going to come back around, because I said, this is a different Featherstone. She's not going to just be like, okay. Yeah. I was like, this is a different Featherstone in this season.
No, she's going to, there will be consequences.
Yes, exactly.
But think about it. That's Featherstone is in Masada, and every time when you walk around the sets that we had during season 4, you could hear the freaking Mormon Tabernacle choir play in your head. I mean, they were so beautiful. But not only is she in Masada, she's the right hand of the All-Father. And Star is kind of like going down his own rabbit hole, and she's running the joint.
Yes.
I mean, she basically running the joint. So there's a confidence to her, and at times a less, she's been very needy where it comes to Star, and that's the only part of her life she's that way. But she likes being large and in charge. I think she's very much in her element.
And what I found, I was telling again, we were talking about how in another life, Tulip and Featherstone would be friends. In an alternate universe, y'all would be because there's something that happens that both of y'all think is really cool, and they're like, huh, that was really cool. But then you remember, oh, we're fighting. I'm like, in another universe, they would just sit there and be like, did you see that? That was pretty cool.
I'm going to go you one further than that. I think Tulip and Featherstone probably understand each other better than anybody else in the world.
I totally agree.
And we're all looking for somebody who gets us, right?
Yes.
Who fully understands us. So I think that both of them are getting something from that relationship, as contentious as it is, that is missing in their life.
Yeah, there seems to be a real mutual respect between you two, even though there's that hatred there, and you're on, it's the goods versus the bads, basically. But yeah, you can always see that there's that respect there. And I don't know, that was one of my favorite scenes. I'm glad you brought that up, man, because that whole stopping and looking down and saying cool thing, which we're trying to be a little,
cryptic.
We're trying to be cryptic for the people that haven't caught up yet.
Right.
And then another thing that I have to tell you is, speaking of Featherstone, how'd you put it? You put it as confidence or arrogance? I can't remember how you put it. But
arrogance. She's arrogant. Yeah, there's an arrogance to her this season,
But there's just something else that's going on now, because now she's got flying suits, and we are seeing the most badass version of Laura Featherstone ever. You have completely embodied this character and improved on it so much. And that's no joke. I mean, coming from two huge nerds that have been reading Preacher for 22 years, we're so wowed with you. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show either. Honestly, I wouldn't do that. You're bringing something to the table with this show, particularly in this season, where you are just knocking it the fuck out of the park. Pardon my language. I just think it's awesome what you're doing.
Well, look, I mean, I will say this. Women in comics in the 90s were not so three-dimensional. They were fairly underwritten. So I think the show has done a really good job expanding Featherstone and Tulip both.
Yes.
And I'm super grateful for that. I think that if the show has taken a really positive step that does veer away from the comics, I think that's a good area to point to. But also, the writers really did right by Featherstone this season. It's my favorite Featherstone season.
Definitely.
And I really felt like this season we got to a place with the writing where we were just so in tune with each other, and it just clicked so easily that it was, I mean, especially since this is our last season, it was a real gift to go out this way. And I love action villain Featherstone. I mean, I love the stunt work. I love the time with the stunt team. I love the fight work. Ruth and I worked on that fight scene for weeks, almost a month. It was really important to us. I hope someday they'll release the full thing. They cut it down a little internally, which I'm sure was the smart thing to do, but it was epic. And we worked on it for a long time. We really wanted to do justice to these women. And somebody after one of our fight scenes in season 3, someone on Twitter said, "Oh, cat fight." And I was like, this is not a cat fight. This is prize fighters. Just because they're women doesn't mean that these are not two prize fighters going at it. And we really wanted to do justice to that.
It was, the thing is, like, for me, whenever I see Ruth or Tulip about to fight someone, I'm like, oh, they don't have stand a chance. But when y'all faced off, I was like, if anyone is going to give her a problem, it's going to be Featherstone.
Right. And vice versa, frankly. She's the only person who gets the drop on Featherstone. Featherstone's ahead of everybody else.
Totally.
Like, she's surrounded by men all the time, and she is always ahead of them. I mean, and this season I've already killed 2 of my own men. Like, it's, just for being annoying and incompetent. Like, it's, I think it would make her sad to actually come to an end of this rivalry with Tulip. I think that would bother her.
I imagine, because the world is boring.
Yeah.
No one believes in Tulip believes in what she believes, even if it's a thing where I'm deciding to walk across the street.
Right.
If Featherstone gets in front of her, Tulip is like, I made a decision to walk across and you're not going to stop me. Just like Featherstone is like, I've made a decision that what I do for the Grail is all important. You believe in what you're going to do so much that no one is going to stop each other. And in another universe, the trouble y'all can make.
They would be a problem, huh?
I know. We could have the best girl squad on earth, right? I said something in season 2 on a behind the scenes interview. They said, who's Featherstone? And I was like, look, if Featherstone's going from A to B and you're between Featherstone and her B and where she's going, she will shoot you just because it's quicker than getting you out of her way.
Yes.
She'll shoot you just because you're standing there, and the quickest thing to do is just shoot you in the head. Like, so it's just who she is. It's just where her head is. It's where her headspace is. And she will not feel badly about it in the least.
Oh, no. And she doesn't understand when other people don't do, like, I won't give any spoilers, but from last season, when there was a thing that Tulip did for Featherstone that was like, wait, why did you do that? Like, because in her brain, be like, wait, you could have just let me, go somewhere, not to ruin anything. You could have just let me go, but Tulip did not feel right.
Right.
And she did. I think Featherstone's like, wait, what? Why are you doing this? I would have let me die. What are you doing?
That's the ultimate difference between villains and heroes, right?
Yes,
like we blur that line so much on Preacher, but at the end of the day, Tulip is still one of our heroes. Right.
Yes. But I think Featherstone is the anti-hero.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like, we're rooting for you against your boss. We're rooting for you. So you are and they've separated these worlds where it's like, okay, well, in this world, I'm rooting for Featherstone. And in this world, I'm rooting for Tulip. But when you guys come together, we're like, oh no. Like, what do we do? And when something happened where I was like, no, she's gone. And then they did a switcheroo where you made it. I was like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. Yeah. And we're not done with the Featherstone Tulip storyline this season. There's more coming. There's something coming by the end of the season that Ruth and I both cherish so much. And I think it's my favorite scene from the season, but we won't get to it for a while.
Okay. This is good. This is such a nerdy thing. How dope was it to do a Comic-Con panel? Like, seriously, like when they said your name and you walked onto the panel, were you just like, oh no, I'm a star. It's over. I am officially a star.
Well, no, I did not think of it in those terms at all. I'll tell you what it feels like. So, I'm a bit of a geek girl myself. Yeah. So, like, season 2, when they're like, you're going to Comic-Con, I was like, oh, shit.
Yes.
And because for season 2, Pip and Malcolm and I were a surprise addition to the panel, they tried to hide us in the hotel before the panel itself. Like they tried to kind of hide us away. And I snuck out of the hotel in a baseball cap and went to the floor because they gave me a pass. I was like, what? I'm going to sit here all day with my pass? I'm going to the floor. So I went. And my husband was like, I was like, once we get to the floor, everything will be fine. But we have to get out of the hotel without anyone from AMC seeing us. Because I was like, they'll send us back. So we're like sneaking around the freaking hotel trying to get out a side door so we can go to the floor. And Malcolm was there that year and we had so much fun. It was such a blast. It was kind of like being an overstimulated kid in a candy store all day. And then Hall H was in some ways an out-of-body experience, but it's when you look, first of all, I'm in like a little swanky dress with nice, beautiful heels that my stylist picked out. So all you're thinking is, please don't let me fall down.
Don't make a viral clip, please.
While I'm on my way to my seat.
Yes.
In Hall H at
That
Comic-Con.
is awesome.
And then after that, you're just trying to keep up with the conversation. I mean, the thing about Hall H is if you're in that line, if you get into that room, you're dedicated.
Yes.
And so the level of conversation on that panel is really high. These are people that are true fans of the show, that watch the show at a high intellectual level, and that really want to have a deep conversation about it. And that's a pleasure because as actors, there's a pretty high level of work going on our show. We have high level prestige actors on our show. So we're always having these geeky conversations about relationship and character and grounding even the most absurd circumstance. And what does my character really want, even though they're like fighting through a pile of intestines on the floor? like what's actually happening right now inside? I've stopped Fight Call before and looked at our stunt coordinator, John Koyama, and gone, wait, but what am I thinking here? Is this the rage moment, or is this where am I thinking what's happening right now? Yeah. And so we're all always after that story point. And at Hall H, people actually want to talk to you about that. They want to talk to you about the geeky actor stuff and the deep dive stuff that, most of the interviews we do really, really just want kind of something they can cut to or some kind of nice quick quote. So
an easy quote, be like, this is easy enough.
Right. But at the Comic-Con panel, you actually get to talk about shit. It's a real pleasure once you get out there and get over the fact that you can't see the end of the hall. You can't see how many people are there.
That's crazy.
And the lights are really bright, so you can hear all the people, but you can't see all the people. And it's like 5,000-6,000 people, and some of them are the ones in the front are have sleeping bags with them because they slept in line overnight. So it's intense, and you don't want to let that crowd down. You want to be. The cast is always worried about are we entertaining enough? What is the panel? And yeah, we can talk about it, but can we also give them some kind of satisfying experience here?
Sure.
Yeah.
That is okay. And I was talking earlier. I was like, I have to ask her. Do you ever, and I know you are very, very humble, which is incredible, but do you ever wake up and just like, I'm a TV star. This is crazy. Like, I actually fought for something, worked hard, and now I'm a star. This is insane.
Well, no, I don't think I'm a star, but I will say this. So here's what I will tell you. Somebody asked me recently in an interview if, they're like, did you always think this is what you wanted to do? And you were, when you're a kid, did you want to be a movie star? Did you want to be a TV star? And I was like, no, I was born on a dairy farm. I mean, the only theater for 100 miles was in my hometown. They provided a drama teacher when I was in high school. They got a grant from the government and they provided a drama teacher for us. And she heard me sing in the choir and recruited me. Her name was Mel Michelle. She changed my life forever. And then when it came time for me to look at colleges, I really wanted to go to theater school. And they helped me, they helped me prepare my audition material, the theater did, and they helped me, pick some programs to go to. And they were very supportive, but I didn't think it would go beyond. When I was in theater school, I thought this would be so cool if I could make a living doing some theater. Like the biggest I thought was, maybe someday I could be on Broadway. Like I never for a second, like I loved movies. I loved television, obviously, but it wasn't something that entered my brain space. Nobody in my family had ever been in the business. I had no idea how that would even happen, but I knew how to audition for theater. This was something that really evolved for me. I think I was probably always on that track. My instincts are smaller and more sort of nuanced, making it more well suited for camera than for a big stage. But I don't think my headspace was there. Like I just kept adding to my skills. When I first started doing theater, I was like, oh, there's a bunch of commercial shoots in Chicago. Maybe I can make some money doing commercials. So I started taking a commercial class, and then they were like, you should take this on camera class. And it sort of started going from there. And I discovered I was good at it, but that's even too big of a dream for me from where I came from. I never thought, oh, someday I'm going to be on television. It didn't enter my headspace.
Really?
I was just a theater actor trying to make a living. Like, how many different ways can I make a living here, right? I mean, what I did love was character. I love transformation. I love character. And if there's anything that I'm proud of in my career, it's that I'm finally at a moment in the last 4 or 5 years where transformation is a positive thing for me.
Yeah.
The business really likes you to be one thing. And I've never been one thing. And I think that was challenging for a big portion of my career. Not for me, but for the business. And now, I mean, when Vince Gilligan hands you a role like Betsy Kettleman, then everybody else goes, oh, she's doing that thing.
Yes.
She's a character.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. But that's what it sort of took. So if I'm proud of anything, I'm really proud I've never sort of been put in a box. I've never been put in a niche. I've always sort of been able, even Catch-22, that role was unlike anything I've done even as Featherstone. So, and I've done a lot of different things as Featherstone. And there's something coming up later this season that is so fucked up and weird. It's so good. And I love it so much. I don't think I ever thought past the artistry. Like, I'm such an artsy fartsy actor. Like, I don't think I thought past, I don't know, can I make a living? And oh, wow, I booked some TV. Can I keep making a living in TV? Like, it just didn't even occur to me. And I know that's not the story everybody wants to hear, but that's the truth of what it is.
No, that's good. It just seems like when you're the person at the family get-togethers that everyone, even if they don't watch a lot of TV, will be like, I recognize her. Or someone's just like, hey, do you think Julie Ann's coming to the family gig?
Yeah, do you get a lot of acting questions at holidays and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm from a small town. And so, like, when Hitch came out, if we do a big reach back to, 2005, when Hitch came out, there's one movie theater in my hometown, and it's called the Capri Twin, and it runs 2 movies. And when Hitch came out, the marquee said Hitch starring Julie Ann Emery.
Yes.
Oh, that is so awesome.
And like when my family went, like my grandfather went, and he hadn't been to a movie since the 60s or something. And he was like a rock star there. And when I go home, my hometown's very supportive. But when I go home, if I walk into Walmart, somebody will yell across the store, Julie, I've seen you on the TV. I've seen you on that TV. Like,
I buy the same toilet paper as Julie Ann Emery.
Yes. I mean, it's incredibly sweet. And I remember, like, when I was growing up, there was a woman who was on General Hospital, and she didn't grow up in my hometown, but her parents lived in my hometown. And she was like the marshal of the Christmas parade. And I remember looking at her going, wow, she really got out. And that was inspirational to me, that you didn't have to stay in my town. You could go out into the world and still come back, and it was okay. And I do go back a lot and talk to like the high school students and stuff. And if there's anything I'm proud of in terms of that, is that I do think, at least in my little hometown, maybe someone's looking at me going, wow, look, she got out and she's working in the world and doing what she dreamed of doing. And maybe I can do that too.
That is awesome.
So Christmas on the coast was actually a pretty big thing in your hometown as well, right?
It was huge in my hometown.
It's so cool.
I mean, Christmas on the coast, there's a new theater in my hometown now called the Rocky Top 10. And they decided they were going to, Christmas on the Coast came out in like 3 or 4 theaters on the East Coast. And then we were on television. And my hometown decided they were going to put the movie out. And I went back, and it was the highest grossing movie for the weekend at the theater in my hometown. But they really turned up for it. And the press there really turned up for it. And the radio stations came out. And my husband and I bought out the theater and hosted a charity screening for the domestic violence shelter in town. Awesome. And that was insanely rewarding because that's not something that underprivileged families or families that are in crisis get to do very often. And I was really proud to be in a movie that, all my nieces and nephews could see because they certainly can't watch Preacher. And it made me happy to be able to kind of give back like that.
That is so... Now, I don't want to bring it down, but I know that in every actor's life, they face the one role that they're like, I was up for that role and I didn't get it. It breaks
there it is. There it is.
So... you know what? This is going to sound really weird and a little Pollyanna, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the thing is, every time I've had that moment, the project has not gone well.
Oh, perfect.
So every time I've had a moment where I was really close to a role and that I thought this could be mine, every time that moment has happened, at the end of the day, the project did not go how everyone thought it was going to go.
Okay, nice.
And I don't know. I mean, cast Julie Ann Emery because karma's a bitch. I don't know, but like
that's going to be the title.
Every time I've had a heartbreaking moment like that, by the time I go and see whatever it is, it doesn't turn out how I thought it was going to turn out, or it doesn't become what everybody thought it was going to become. I know that's a weird answer to that question, but when you are an actor, you audition for tons of stuff all the time, right? There's no sure thing. Even Better Call Saul was not a sure thing. Not everybody thought that was a good idea, right? To do a prequel to the Breaking Bad spinoff, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're like, you're going to ruin Breaking Bad. A house is going to work. And the tone of Better Call Saul is quite different than the tone of Breaking Bad because it's the tone of Saul. Like the Breaking Bad tone gets darker as Walter White gets darker, as he kind of evolves. The tone of the show evolves with him. And the same thing is happening with Better Call Saul. So, but it's based around a different character. So not everybody thought that was a good idea. No one thought Fargo was a good idea because I was on season 1 of Fargo and the internet was horrible about it. I mean, it was horrible. So everyone who jumped on season 1 of Fargo did it because they thought the writing was so strong and they just wanted to work with that group of people. Like no one thought that was a good idea. And we shot the first 2 episodes of it. And then we went on a month-long hiatus. And then they showed, before we went back to work, they showed the first episode at the TCAs to critics. And the critics went wild for it. So when we went back to work, the whole tone of everything was different. I mean, it was just like the stress level had gone way down. We had, for the first month we were on set, there were executives on set every single day. Everyone was scared about it. Everyone was nervous about it. It was, so you don't know what project is going to go great and what project is going to kind of fall apart. A lot happens in the filmmaking process that you can't predict.
See, I'm the worst. That's why I can't be an actor. Because I would be in that on those lights and they'd be like, and I'm like, yeah, they're all here to see me get down. Everybody just calm down.
Yeah. You're so dumb.
When you're shooting, you're not you. I mean, when I'm shooting, I'm the character, right?
Right.
I mean, look, Comic-Con's different. I mean, frankly, it makes me much more nervous. Red carpets make me much more nervous than shooting.
Oh, wow.
And frankly, so do something like Comic-Con, like a panel. That's much more nerve-wracking for me than being on set with anyone, frankly.
It's way more raw, right?
It's way more raw, and I'm much more comfortable crawling into a character's skin than being Julie. I mean, I just don't think I'm all that. So I don't understand why all those people are there looking at me.
For shame. How dare.
No, I mean, look, okay, I love my skill set, and I love that I have a talent for crawling into a character's head and shoes and soul, and I think I'm good at that. But outside of that, and I don't think this is fully uncommon for actors. I think there are actors that are very comfortable in the spotlight, and then there are actors that are more comfortable in character than they are being themselves in the spotlight.
It makes a lot of sense, actually. It's kind of like a filter.
Yes.
You have a barrier in between you and the public eye, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a cushion, right?
Yes.
I totally get that. Because then it's easy if I'm out there playing like Sam Johnson, and then the critics are like, terrible movie. I could say, well, they sure didn't like Sam Johnson.
Right.
Steve's like, I'm legit, but they did not like that character. Whereas if I'm one of because there's some actors, we won't mention any names, that get paid to be themselves on screen pretty much.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know how they deal with bad critique because you're like, oh, you're not just criticizing the movie.
Yeah,
that's them.
That's literally me.
That is them on
Yeah,
screen.
I mean, look, I did not go that route, and I was encouraged to go that route early on,
Oh.
but I was not able to do it. What I'm always going to be drawn to is probably the opposite of what I just did. And the other thing that's going to sort of turn me on creatively is going to be something that's challenging that I don't fully understand. I like the deep dive. So I was probably never going to play something that was 100% me. I've played roles that are closer to me, and then roles that are further away. But I was probably always going to go sort of a character route.
Hypothetical situation.
Yes.
You stop acting today.
Yes.
What is the one thing that you're most proud of that you can take with you?
That's kind of like asking me to choose my favorite child, because you're asking me kind of to choose my favorite role, and I don't know how to do that. I have a list of roles I'm really proud of, but one of them is Fargo. And, Ida is not an outrageous character, but to get in the pocket on her, it had to be dialed back to such a level of naturalism where you're just sitting in her head that I'm really proud that I was able to dial that back that far and not tip my hand and not play anything. The only time people go wrong on Fargo is when they try to play the comedy of it. If you just play these people, then it's funny and it's dark and it's what it is, but you got to be comfortable just sitting in that character. Like on Fargo, I would continue to tell myself, just stop acting, just do less, just do less. You know who she is. You're her, just do less. And Betsy Kettleman, the pocket on her is so narrow. And if you get outside of that pocket, it's just bad acting.
Yes.
And sometimes that was terrifying because sometimes I couldn't find the pocket until I was with Jeremy Shamus and we were getting ready to start. And sometimes it took us being together to really click that in, which is terrifying because nobody wants to suck on the Breaking Bad spinoff, right?
Oh, come on. Yes.
Right. But when Vince Gilligan looks at you and says, yes, that's it, do that, you say, yes, sir. And you do your best to do that. But I'm pretty proud that we were able to find that pocket for those characters and to keep them there, to find some way to ground them in something, but keep their heads. She doesn't think like other people do. If we're all living on Earth, she's on Jupiter. I mean, she's not in the same realm as the rest of us, and yet she is living in the same world. So I'm pretty proud that we were able to find a really interesting place for them to live. And Featherstone transforms all the time. And I feel like I found a way to ground the jazz singer, which could have just gone, two-dimensionally, right?
You did such a good job. That's why the last time I was like, is she really singing?
Yeah, that's me singing. Yeah.
It's I did not know she could sing.
Yeah, that's me singing. But that's, and also Jenny, people really wanted Jenny to be real. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty proud of that. That's online when season 2 was airing, people would say, but don't you think Jenny and Tulip could be friends? And I'm like, Jenny's not real. I mean, Jenny's Featherstone's con.
Yes.
Featherstone is conning her. She's just that good at it.
Very good.
Jenny's not actually a character. Jenny's a con. Jenny's the car that Featherstone is driving. I'm pretty proud that Sam and I were able to find a place for those personas to sit that was so grounded and kind of diabolically real that people invested in the relationship with the persona between whoever they were with. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite moment. It's hard to pick a favorite thing. What are you proud of? It's hard to do that,
How about instead of a favorite character, is there a moment, whether it be I got this part without auditioning or where you just said, I am so happy that this just took me from, okay, I'm doing this is fun to, oh my goodness, I think this can be a thing. This is it.
So we came to LA in a weird way. We were in New York. My husband had been doing Les Mis on Broadway, and
nice.
He was understudying in Les Mis on Broadway, and they offered him the role he was understudying on the road. And his last 3 months on the road were in Los Angeles. And he got out here and he called me. He's like, I think you should come out here. I'd been doing all of these on camera classes. I'd been doing some teensy tiny indie film things in New York that were probably never going to go anywhere, that I found an audition for him backstage, So we were in LA for about a year. Mm-hmm. I had gone in for ER 7 times and I booked a role on ER.
Oh, nice.
And it was a great role. It was Eric Palladino's exit from the show. I had more to do than, I wasn't just a patient. I was a paramedic. And after that episode, they came to me and asked me if I would recur, if I would be one of their regular paramedics. And that wasn't a guarantee, but it meant every 2 or 3 episodes I would pop up as a paramedic and I would shoot for a day or two and go away. But it was enough for me to quit my waiting tables job.
Oh, that's huge.
And I kept my waiting tables job for a while after I'd started airing on ER, and the customers were starting to recognize me from ER.
Oh my God.
Yeah, while I was bringing them their burger or their eggs or whatever. And so I was like, I think I can quit my side hustle. I think I've got enough work on ER to do that. And when I did quit it, I got Taken, which was a mini series for the Sci-Fi Channel that Steven Spielberg was producing.
Oh, come on.
So I had this, that all happened within like 3 weeks of each other. I was recurring on ER, quit my waiting tables job, and then I booked this crazy role on this big mini series in Vancouver. And I was like, wow,
Something's going on.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
I'm paying my rent on television work. Like, I thought, my husband and I got out of theater school and we kind of stitched a living together doing regional theater, but not, living in LA or New York is much more expensive than living in a place like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought, we could stitch a living of some kind together doing theater, but I didn't think necessarily I could do that on television. And that was the moment where I was like, oh shit, I think this is happening. I think I'm actually doing this.
It's funny that you still don't think, you don't see yourself as, I think once, the official thing is, once you can go out and someone says, hey, you're such and such from such and such.
Yeah.
I think you're officially Julie Ann, you are a star, Julie Ann. I'm sorry to break the news to you.
I'm going to have to agree with him.
I don't know if anyone's told you this. It's unfortunately, I got to give you the news.
We hate to break it to you.
I'm like super thrilled to be a working actor. So whatever it takes. I will. Okay, so there's one more moment.
Okay.
If you want to hear
Yes.
it. When I was waiting tables in LA, I waited tables at this place called The Good Earth, and Will Smith and Jada Pinkett used to come in. And I would wait on them, and they were lovely, and they would tip me, $20 on a $24 check or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were lovely. And about 3 months after I quit that job, I was on Hitch. I booked Hitch.
Oh my gosh.
And when I showed up to the first table read, I was sitting across the table from Will. And there was a placard with his name on it, and there was a placard with my name on it. And I just looked at it for a minute, and I was like, this is a nice moment. This is a real nice moment.
Wow.
This is a real nice moment. I'm just going to sit here and be happy for a minute. I'm just going to sit here right now and just have this nice moment. That was a nice one, too, for sure.
Did you tell him about your waiting on him?
I did later. At that point, the script was in trouble. So everything was just put your head down and figure out how to make it work. But while we were shooting, I told him, yeah.
I know, he's like, whoa.
And then I saw him later, before the movie came out, when they were doing market testing. I saw him at that restaurant. We had come by to have lunch and see some of my pals there. And he and Jada came in and we chatted about the fact that I used to work there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now, yet another pin in my Julie Ann's a star. You know Will Smith. Normally, hey, how are you?
Did you catch that? She said, Will and Jada.
Will and Jada, no big deal. Oh, did you not catch the Smith and Pinkett? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
My mom fussed at me. Okay, I'm turning red now, but I'm going to say it anyway. So last year, 10 days after we finished shooting Preacher, I got on a plane and went to Italy to shoot Catch 22.
Nice.
And in Catch, I played George Clooney's wife, and who's having a mad torrid affair with Christopher Abbott. And we were in Italy for almost 2 months, and we flew my mom out for her birthday and her partner. And she was like, when they got there, we were talking about something. We had rented an apartment for in between my shoot days up in Lake Como.
Nice.
And my mom was there, and we were talking about where to go. And I said, well, George said we should go here. George said we should go to the grill at this place. And George said we should check out this place. And she goes, who's George? And I was like, oh,
the Clooney.
I was like, George Clooney? And she goes, well, how am I supposed to know? You're just calling him George. And I was like,
that's crazy.
Well, he introduced himself and he said, hey, I'm George. So he's George. But she was so she's like, you can't call him George. She was so upset with me.
I would have said the same thing. I'd be like, who are you talking about?
I would do the same thing though.
What? Oh, George Clooney.
She's like, you can't call him George. Julie Ann. I was like,
I totally have that mentality too. Like if I'm running into people, like if I ran into you on the street, I'd be like, "Hey, Julie Ann Emery, how are you?
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going, Will Smith?"
Yeah, full name.
I mean, I totally would do that.
There is no question. I wouldn't be like, so me and Julie, right? On
Hello,
the phone.
Bob Barker, America's favorite game show host.
Exactly. Now, speaking of Catch-22, when you got that call, were you just like, of course, I'm a star now? Or were you just like, oh my goodness, it's happening?
No, I was completely confused because I knew that physically I was not what they were looking for.
What do you mean by that?
No, they looked for this role. George will tell you, they looked for my role for over a month.
Uh-huh.
They saw a ton of people, and I knew that they wanted kind of a Marilyn Monroe type. And the casting director for it was Rachel Tenner, who cast me in Fargo, who I'd been in for a lot. And she was like, they saw me late in the process because I was not what they were looking for, which was the same with Featherstone. Actually, they saw me late in the process. So she was like, look, do whatever you can to make yourself 1940s. They want a blonde. They don't want Julie Ann. They want something else. But sure, let me see what you'll do with this. I know you'll do something interesting. So I did a self-tape because I was in New Orleans shooting Preacher. And then they called and wanted me to come in the room. They're like, George Clooney and Grant Heslov want to meet you. And I was like, I can't. It was my heaviest episode of Preacher of the season. They were only there for like 3 days. And I was like, I'm shooting every day that week. I can't get away.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent notes and I taped again. And I thought look, everybody wanted to be on Catch-22. Everybody wanted that gig. There's only like 2 women to speak of in the thing. I was like, they can have whoever they want. This is not going to be me. But sure, I'll knock the tape out of the park. Maybe I can make it hurt for them to say no. You know, I just never in a million years thought, like a week went by and they called and they're like, they're offering you Catch-22. And I was like, you could have knocked me over with a feather because, and I think it takes, Grant and George they're both actors turned writer, director, producers. Right. And I think they were I think there's a very specific tone to that show. And I'm a big fan of their movies. It's very Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes.
Monuments Men. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I get what this is. I'm a huge fan of what their company does for films. And so I think I just guessed, I hit the tone right. And I hit the right mix of character of like the right mix of making her a little grounded, but still playful and fun. Like still sort of the character, but giving her a little something underneath that. But I got lucky that they were like, oh no, we can put a wig on her because they're actors and they believe that they can do that. So I never in a million years thought Catch-22 would be me. I was thrilled that it was me, but I never ever thought I'm booking that part.
How was the experience filming Catch-22?
It was beautiful. I mean, George runs a great set. Now I'm self-conscious every time I say George now.
Yeah, because it's no big deal.
The Clunes.
George, Will, and Jada. Right. That's all you chill with. Right. Those are who
But it's, the tone on set is very important to him. Yeah. Everybody, the tone being a happy, good place where everybody does good work. Mm-hmm. Like they don't suffer egos there. They want it to be a good, happy place. My character, I would drop in and shoot for a day and then be off for a couple of weeks and then shoot and be off for a couple of weeks. So it wasn't like Preacher is very much a creative home for me. I know everybody there, and Catch-22 was not ever going to quite be that. And, I had a lot of bedroom scenes with Chris Abbott, and that could have been super awkward. But George always made me super welcome from the jump immediately. They took very good care of me there. And I've never had a scene in bed like that was handled in a better way. I think they really empower their actors. They look at it as a similar way as I do. They're looking for the moment. They're looking for the character. It was just a beautiful, lucky job. Like I kind of like would go to work and then be on vacation in Italy and then go to work and be on vacation in Italy. It was probably the luckiest job of my career that way. It was just a beautiful, magical moment in time.
That is so, and for me, I'm like, Julie Ann is so confident. You are so, because for me, if I'm doing a bet, I can do a bet. I don't know if I could get away with it because, like, if I take my shirt off and get the mail, if a car starts coming by, I'm running back in the house. I'm like, oh, no. You guys, you can't see me like this. It's so nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but see, that wasn't me. That was Marion. So this is what I'm saying about character.
That's real.
See, because, and And for Marion, and I've said no to a lot of stuff where I would take my clothes off. I've said no a lot. But Marion, it's the 1940s. She's in a very unhappy marriage to George Clooney. I mean,
I guess looks aren't everything.
Yes.
Talk about the hardest acting job of my life.
You are acting. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You are acting.
Because he's also lovely as hell and he's that good looking. Like, I mean, seriously. But she's in the 40s. Women, you couldn't have a credit card. You couldn't rent an apartment without a male signature on it. You couldn't take out a line of credit. You couldn't get a bank loan. You couldn't open a bank account without your father or a husband. You couldn't, there were so many things that women could not do then. There were so few options for her in an unhappy marriage that her sexuality, her physicality, her body, in my mind, was her way of exercising her own freedom.
Yes.
And it was her way of rebelling and her way of sort of taking her agency and her power back. And so it made sense for her. So like, look, it's awkward. I wore shorts and a tank top during rehearsal, but it's awkward when you're talking about what you're going to do. But once you're in the moment, Marion's much more confident and comfortable in her body than Julie Ann is.
That's really smart.
It made perfect sense for her.
Yeah, totally. So from now on, when I go outside, I'm just going to be like, I'm The Rock. I'm not Steve.
Right.
There you go.
I am The Rock.
That's the spirit, buddy.
I'm going to walk out like, look.
Yeah, just create a character for yourself. I know that's a super nerdy way to look at it, but it is how I feel about it.
I think it's smart. Because you said, and it's so strange that you're in New Orleans, disappearing into this character that's kind of a 40s sort of jazz singer. And then you get a call being like, how close to that old Marilyn Monroe thing can you get? I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Well, that's what, look, we were shooting season 3.
Oh, okay.
So it was season 3 of Preacher. So we were pretty far from the jazz singer, but my agent, God bless him, when he sent my tape off, he sent my scene. He's like, look, she can be sexy and blonde. Like, this is not the 40s, but she can be sexy and blonde. So he sent my scenes from my first episode of Preacher along with my audition tape, which I'm positive is what even made the job remotely possible.
Are you thinking of maybe possibly, I'm saying hypothetically, doing a musical maybe?
I mean, okay, so my husband and I used to do musicals together, but I'm not in that kind of vocal shape right now. I would love to go back to that. I would love to share the stage with Kevin again someday.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
But I was never the singer he is. I mean, look, doing something in a recording studio is much easier and better than like 8 shows a week, right?
Oh,
like
yes.
I live that life, right? I live next to that life. I know what it takes for a Broadway singer to do 8 shows a week and do it well. Where I vocally not in that place right now, but maybe again someday I would love that.
But you would do an on-screen musical perhaps?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In a hot second.
Oh, in a hot second?
Yeah.
Is there any genre of film that you haven't done yet that you'd really like to sink your teeth into?
I really want to do a Western because I want to ride a horse. I grew up with horses and I just want to ride a horse. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, I would love to do something like Firefly where you could like ride a horse, but it's still sci-fi or something, I would love to do something like that.
Maybe you got to get into this Star Wars business. I mean, those are still coming out.
I mean, okay, so here's the thing. I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Yes.
And who wouldn't jump at that moment? I'm also a Trekkie, and I know you're not supposed to be both, but I am.
Oh, no, it's all good.
I know you're not supposed to be both, but, we can have that argument if you want someday, but I am both, and let's just all deal with it. So I auditioned for Enterprise to play the Vulcan when it was out and about.
Stop.
And I kept getting callbacks for it. And there came a point when I looked at my husband and I was like, I don't know if I want to know how they make the ship shake when they get hit by a photon torpedo.
Yeah, it takes away some of the magic.
I was like, this might blow it for me. I don't know. Do I really want this? I don't know if I actually want it. I mean, of course you say yes to it, but do I really, really want this? I think it might blow it for me.
So you kind of like to be distant from the things you super love.
I do.
Even though you would do Star Trek or Star Wars, you'd be like, you know what? I like being able to enjoy the magic of what it is.
No, I really do.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I do. And it's, it's getting harder and harder because, like, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan and Hobbit, all of that. So when my husband and I went to New Zealand this year, it's the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings fever everywhere. You walk into a shop and there's like a million little figurines and stuff. And Graham McTavish is everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Like he's on posters. There's little figurines of him. He's everywhere. And I'm like, this is so weird. And Martin Freeman. I worked with Martin on Fargo. I was like,
that's right.
I am seeing my coworkers everywhere. Like, it was so weird. And it took me out. You know what I mean? Like, It does blow some of the magic. It does for sure. So I don't know. I mean, look, saying 2 lines on Star Wars is something anybody would jump at, including me. But I'm okay that it's not happened yet.
Yet is the key word.
You have not. Have you done an all-out horror movie? You haven't done a horror movie yet, right?
Yes, I have done a horror movie, but I'm not telling you the name of it because it's not very good.
Oh, wait a minute. Come on.
It's not great. I mean,
but Julie, those are the best kind.
Yes.
I mean, we all got to eat, right?
Yeah.
We all got to like pay our rent, but it's not fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, but it's watchable. I love horror movies. It takes a lot for me to hate one.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of watchable. Like, yeah, it's not great.
Oh,
I know, and I never say negative things about the projects I'm in, but I'm not saying the name of it because it's, yeah.
But see, the thing is, it's an important part of your steps. Your process to becoming the star you are.
She's like, get the hell out of here. I'm not going to say it.
I'm totally not saying it. That's totally not happening. Anybody can take a deep dive into my IMDb page, but I'm not saying it. But here's the thing. I'm a scaredy cat with horror movies.
Oh.
Like, I love a good action film, but I'm a total scaredy cat with horror movies. So I'm not dying to do a horror movie because I don't know how I would watch it. After Hitch came out, I was getting invited to all the Sony premieres, because Sony was our studio. Mm-hmm. And I went to the premiere of The Grudge, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sitting, in a prime seat because I was one of the Sony people. I was there with the actors in Sony films.
Nice.
I'm holding my little clutch, my little tiny bag that you only carry to events because it's silly. And we're watching Grudge, and something happened on screen, and I screamed, and I threw my bag over my head.
Wow.
And it landed in the lap of the Sony executive sitting behind me.
But you could do a horror movie without watching it.
I'm telling you, I am a scaredy cat. And then I had to apologize. He's like, here's your bag. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
It's got a little popcorn butter on it now.
Exactly.
No big deal.
Like, I literally threw my bag over my head and screamed. Like, I'm so not Featherstone about that stuff.
Next time, we're going to bring the Broadway star in on this conversation because I got a lot of music stuff to ask.
I would love that.
I have a lot of music stuff.
I'm a fangirl, and there is no bigger fan in me than to be a fan of my husband. Like, I love all things Kevin Early, for sure.
I am a Broadway music person, and so we'd be able to talk, but we'd get pretty dirty. I get into the music.
Okay, then, dude, you have to go get the soundtrack for Death Takes a Holiday.
Done. Consider it done.
Kevin sings Death on it, and it is so brilliant. I mean, he sounds amazing. It's insane.
I'm going to get that and then watch both of your horror movies this week.
Well, then you're going to have 2 wildly different experiences. Buckle up.
I actually do have one more question because I was reading something this morning. And now it's a 2-year-old article, but I read this morning that you actually practice martial arts. Is that true?
So I used to practice martial arts. I have a purple belt in Taekwondo.
Nice.
The thing is, I started practicing martial arts. I was doing an FBI series, and I was far and away the smallest person on the show. Like, they had to ask the extras casting director to send shorter extras for the FBI offices because they were making me look like a child. Not that Ruth is a little shorter than me. Like, I'm not teensy, but I'm not, a tall girl. And I took it. I started taking it between the pilot and when the series started going because I thought it would kind of affect everything, and then I fell in love with it. The problem is when you get to a certain belt level, you have to start sparring with your classmates. Yeah. And it was usually me and a bunch of guys in class. And you're supposed to only hit to the chest area, the between your hips and your shoulders. But my head is like at their chest height, so I kept getting hit in the face.
Ooh, and not good for the business.
No,
I can't do it when I'm shooting. So so I started dropping in and out when I wasn't shooting, and now I'm shooting a lot. So I'm not as up on my practice as I used to be, but I do have a purple belt in Taekwondo, and I love it quite a lot. I think it's quite wonderful, and it has affected everything for me. Gun stance when you're firing a weapon is the same as fight stance, and it massively. The first time I was in a rehearsal with John Koyama, our stunt coordinator for Preacher, he was like, "Oh shit, what have you been doing?" He's like, "You just automatically dropped into fight stance.
That's awesome.
What are you? Okay, show me what you've been doing, and then we can morph that for what works for us." So, like,
that is awesome.
It was such a worthy endeavor, and I highly recommend it for everybody. It gives you so much confidence in your body and in your physicality. And it just gives you confidence walking down the street. I think it's a positive thing for anybody.
And my thing is, so listeners, make sure if you're going to ask her for an autograph, announce yourself because you might get hurt.
I do have a mean sidekick.
Okay.
Gonna get a roundhouse to the chops.
I'm real good with a kick, so watch out just a little. Yeah.
Announce yourself.
Yeah. All right, Julie Ann. So Steve and I put together a little something. You want to play a game with us real quick before you go?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, Steve, you know what? You came up with this fantastic title.
Well, it was pretty easy because, see, being the biggest fans of Julie Ann Emery in the world, it was like, okay, I don't know if my knowledge of Julie Ann information is going to come into use until I talk to her. But then I realized, wait a minute. I think I know more of her lines than she does from her history. So we came up with a game called Julie Ann's Memory.
Are you ready?
I am ready. Bring it.
All right. All right, here are the ground rules. I'm going to take a quote from one of your old lines or different movies, and I want you to tell me the character that said this line, one of your characters that you've played, and what movie or show it's from.
You're going to say a quote, and I'm going to tell you what it's from.
Yes, and it's only from one of your characters, from a movie, from one of your TV shows or movies that you are the superstar in, of course.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, here we go. Number one. Quote, yeah, there will be no deal. There is no money with which to make a deal.
Betsy Cattleman. Easy. Better Call Saul.
Nice.
Your turn, Dave. What?
All right, here's one. Vance Munson. You're right. There's no way he ever had a mother.
Casey and Hitch. Yeah.
Nice. It's like you've acted these before or something.
I do have a bit of a freakish memory for dialogue, but not for anything else. But let's keep going.
Yeah, we only had 4, and you got 2 out of 2. Okay, this might be a little harder, maybe. I don't know if Julie Ann's going to get this one. I really reached deep. All right. What I'd like to know is, how close were you and Blake's mother?
Oh, did we get her? Did you get her, Steve?
What I'd like to know is, how close were you and Blake's mother? Oh my gosh. You might have stumped me.
No.
What I want to know is, how close were you and Blake's mother? Maybe Line of Fire?
It is Guillory's Little Secret.
Oh, that's a short film. That's right. Did you know I kissed Annabeth Gish in that, and she has very nice lips.
I know. I saw it. I was like, I didn't know this existed.
Yes. Guillory's Little Secret. Sure.
You're just bringing back memories right now. All right, last one. I think you're going to get this. I was thinking maybe Blue for the nursery.
Oh, Fargo. Yeah. I'm also eating ice cream when that happens. And, there's a moment when the ice cream falls off the spoon, and that was a total accident, but they kept it because they liked it so much.
Give Julie Ann Emery an applause. What are we talking about? Congratulations.
Oh, I'm so bummed I didn't get Guillory's Little Secret. That's a deep cut, though, man. That's a real deep cut. Yeah.
Good job, man.
I had to go. I was like, no, all of these are way too easy. And then I watched it. I was like, I did not know she had this movie at all. Because I remember your co-star from Scandal.
Right, of course.
I was like, I didn't know that they worked together.
Well, and Annabeth Gish has been in a million. I mean, Mystic Pizza. Like, she was Mystic Pizza to me. Always.
Oh, that's right.
X-Files. Do you remember the X-Files? She was on the X-Files at the end. The last, like 2 or 3 seasons?
Wow. Now, okay, and before I let you go, because the last voice you're going to hear is from Dan, but I wanted to first of all say thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure. It seems like I now have somebody to visit when I'm in it. I'll be like, everybody, I know a Broadway star and a superstar, so I'm not paying for anything in Los Angeles. But it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I look forward to seeing what you do in the future, and hopefully you'll come on back so we could talk to both you and your husband, and I can get geeky with music on him.
I would love that. We
awesome.
Would both love that. I'm a big musical theater geek myself. I might give you a run for your money there.
We're going to have a blast. All right. Yes. Have a good one. The last voice you're going to hear is Dan. Go for it, brother.
Yeah. Before we let you go, is there anything that you want to plug that's upcoming, your future projects? Because I know there's something in the works with Brian Dennehy, if I'm not mistaken.
I have a movie with Brian Dennehy coming out, and J.K. Simmons and David Koechner, and Michael Malley plays my brother, like some comedy people I've admired for a long time. Coming out in September. It's called 3 Days with Dad, formerly known as Life Support, if you've been all over the IMDb. And that's coming out in September. It'll be in select theaters, and then it'll be out on digital, and I'm really, really proud of it. And then there's some stuff. They did make the announcement. I'll be on season 6 of Bosch coming this spring.
That's right. That's right.
I wasn't going to say anything.
That's got to be exciting for you, huh?
Yeah, I'm a girl with a gun again, man. It's like just like old home week. You know, we've already had a scene where there was a shootout and all the guys around. It was me and a bunch of guys on set, you know, actors. I'm the only actress in the scenes. And they're all hyped up. They're like, yeah, we're going to shoot it. And I'm like, I mean, did you shoot someone and they get thrown off a cliff?
You've already done that.
You're not holding the gun right, boys.
Yeah, after Featherstone, I'm like, I mean, this is great. This is awesome. But the guys get all hyped up and I'm like, dude, I got thrown off a cliff in January.
Yeah.
This is fine.
You were on a set where a hanging butthole was in a room. That's insane. So none of that is gonna.
What is that? Can you imagine walking on the set? What is that hanging from?
Yeah, exactly.
It's exactly what you think it is.
That would be Julie Ann.
That is hilarious.
Julie Ann, thank you so much for coming on. Every time you come on, we just get so many hits because people love you. Like, you're just such a wonderful person on Twitter, and I think it really shows, and you're very socially conscious, and you're always giving to charities and things like that. I think you're just a wonderful person, and thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the advocacy you guys have done for our show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
We are going to miss it very much, but, all good things, right?
All good things. Life has to move forward, but all good things.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Julie Ann Emery. You know her from Preacher as Laura Featherstone. Sunday nights at AMC. Thank you so much again. You know what? We're going to talk to you soon. I know this.
Definitely.
Superstar.
You're like, do ya?
Definitely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Hey, you have a safe trip.
All right. Have a good night. Have a good one. Tell your husband I said hey.
I'll see you guys on Twitter.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Well, that's it. We hope you guys really enjoyed this. Isn't she a wonderful person? I'm not saying this just because she was on the show. I really appreciate her because she's just so humble and modest, and I know she says that she doesn't think she's a star, but I think we all know the real answer to that, right? Ladies and gentlemen of the congregation, we will talk to you soon. We do have another episode to drop this week, and it's our coverage of Season 4, Episode 6, The Lost Apostle. We'll be talking to you soon. With that, be good to yourselves, be good to the people around you, and thanks for listening to the Word.